Hello and welcome to Get Involved Referee as we pour over all the main key incidents from the action-packed Premiership weekend in the great company of Steve Conroy, Des Roach and David McDonald. And of course, listen, major talking points across the weekend, fellas. And let's start at Paisley.
Yeah, there was one or two talking points. Plenty to talk about there, and most of it, I think, turned out well for the refereeing team. Yeah,
I would agree. There was I think 2 or 3 incidents that sure we'll discuss, but the refereeing team as a whole came out on top.
Yep.
Decisions were made correctly.
Early on in the game, of course, is the first talking point. David Dickinson in charge of the match, Andrew Dallas on VAR, and ball goes into the box. Nobody really sees it at the time, but it catches Greg Taylor on the arm. Penalty for you guys, without question?
As we normally do in these situations, it's a penalty without question, but with caveats. In the sane world, the one that we hanker after, that never in a million years is a penalty. He didn't mean it. His arm was up, but he certainly didn't mean to handle it. It caught him again when he tried to get his hand out the way. There was no intent. There was nothing in it. He could hardly have time to get out of the way because of where the ball was chucked at him. But in this day and age, penalty every day of the week.
Yeah, and I think you see the way the players reacted and the sidelines reacted. It's an acceptance now that if this incident occurs, then the penalty kick is going to be the outcome. David Dickinson had a great unobstructed view on it. He deemed it not a penalty.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He did not call it at the time and he was so close.
Yeah, he deemed it not to be a penalty. I agreed with Steve. For me, in the bad old days, it would never have been a penalty because the ball has struck you. And we keep saying this about you striking the ball or the ball striking you. The ball has struck Greg Taylor. But obviously Andrew Dallas and VAR, we've seen the decisions, the way the interpretation and application has been given this year. It was only going to end one way as soon as David had that information to come across and take a look at it. Yeah, penalty kick in 2023. That's what you're going to get.
Yep.
I was a bit baffled by the length of time it took for that decision to be made. Now, as far as we're aware, clearly the ball has to go out of play. They have to stop play. But there was about 2 minutes. I'm going to say 2 minutes. I don't know the exact time. Must be about 2 minutes. It felt like 2 minutes between that incident and then VAR getting checked. If Celtic had scored at that moment, would the goal have been chopped off and gone back for the penalty?
Yeah, it would have been chalked off because it would have gone back to an infringement, a foul that they missed, a foul of significance, not just a foul, but a foul of significance that was going to lead to a penalty. So again, in this day and age, those 2 minutes unfortunately disappear into the ether. And no matter what happens in there, except, as Des pointed out, if somebody had been stupid enough to clatter somebody in that 2 minutes and got themselves a red card, that would stand. But the goal would have been disallowed and brought back for the penalty.
So technically Celtic are playing for that 2 minutes for no reason, no purpose.
The 2 minutes doesn't exist.
So it just disappears, doesn't get added on at half.
It's fallen away into the Fergusley Park ether. It's just, it's 2 minutes.
Just gone.
2 minutes of football that didn't exist.
Surely we need to then look at other ways in which we can try and stop play that allows VAR to be checked.
Again, that's very difficult to manage. There would have to be a foul or the ball going out of play. Now, how often do we see it that the play, something contentious has happened and play just continues, or you look to get a substitute on and it goes? It was just one of those coincidences that the ball never went out of play. The referee, a wee bit like the Rangers Partick Thistle game a couple of weeks ago, could he have been cuter and seen a foul or whatever? Possibly. But again, you can't manipulate the laws of the game to suit any particular position.
I think David's flagging up a real flaw here, though, isn't he? Because the longer the game goes on, when you're waiting to check a penalty decision, so many things could happen. Players could get injured, as you say, someone could get sent off.
Absolutely.
It could be absolute chaos.
It could be chaos. Imagine that at a Celtic Rangers game. But we talk about the craziness in the, whatever they call it, the second phase offside now, when the whole world knows it's offside, but you can't give it for another 10 minutes till something happens. Somebody's going to get hurt in that time. And it's the same in this one. But I thought it was pretty blatant. It was pretty obvious. I was never prone to giving penalties, but if I'm giving a penalty there, then it's pretty obvious. It surely can't take 2 minutes to look at that once and say, David, that's a penalty, you need to go and look at it.
But they're not allowed to interject, is that correct? They cannot stop the game quickly?
No.
So VAR couldn't have shouted to David Dickinson, David, that's a handball, mate, you better look at it real quickly?
I think David would have been getting that message down his ear, and as soon as the play went out, he would know that he's going to be going across to the side of the pitch to do an on-field review. But there's nothing that David can do at that moment in time to stop the game unless there is a genuine infringement or the ball has left the field of play.
And we talked about with the Tillman one. Do you see a foul? See in inverted commas? He didn't even have that opportunity.
No.
You know what Celtic are like. They're that damn quick, so that there wasn't an opportunity to intervene. So it's maybe like an unforeseen circumstance. I don't think anybody saw that kind of circumstance coming. And although we've been critical in saying that there's not going to be any teething problems because the whole world's had the teething problems, obviously we've just hit on one there now, so that certainly needs to be reviewed by the great and the good.
How would you change that then? How could you make that smoother and more appropriate?
The only way of doing that would be that VAR would have to shout, "I'm looking at this."
Yeah. Stop the game.
Stop it. Yeah.
Regardless, whoever's in possession. In the same way that someone's injured, perhaps.
Yeah. Why
you know
not?
what I mean?
You need to stop it.
If VAR are going to do that and say they want to stop the game immediately, again, that would have to be a worldwide thing. It couldn't be a national thing. It would have to be implemented by FIFA and then implemented across the world. And it does seem as if it's only Scotland that we keep talking about the issues with VAR. But yeah, there's nothing that can be done. VAR can't all of a sudden just put a big halt on the game. They've got to wait for that natural break.
I can imagine David Dickinson refereeing it after. Like that incident takes place, Celtic are on the attack, and all going through his mind is don't score, please don't score.
Absolutely.
I'll be all over that podcast on Monday morning. Don't score, please don't score.
Yeah, that would have been going through his head, I'm pretty sure.
Without a shadow of a doubt. But we've been really critical, but I think that was an
exceptional circumstance.
That was unforeseen.
Yeah.
I guess it does add extra stress to the ref though, doesn't it? When that stuff is happening and you've got to go and make a review.
Well, the biggest decision that you have to make is the next one. If you make an error, forget it. The biggest decision you're always going to make is the next one. 2 errors don't make a right. But if I've got someone shouting down your ear thinking I'm going to go and have to review it, then surely your confidence in your mind must be thinking about it before you make that. But we'd like to think that David's a strong enough character that he could decompartment that, put it away, get the next decision, and then go and deal with the fallout thereafter.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And then later on in the half, David makes the call, pretty straightforward, red card. Charles Dunn's appalling short back pass to his goalkeeper forces him to pull back Kyogo. It's an obvious denying a goal scoring opportunity scenario, but was it a penalty for your judgment?
For me, no, it wasn't a penalty. It was called correctly. The contact started and finished outside of the penalty area, so it was a free kick. Charles Dunn's first touch was a bit like Steve's, wasn't he?
I was going to say harsh, but no, it's not.
Wasn't he the best? He's put himself under a great deal of pressure, and then he's even put his team under even more pressure by getting them sent down, knocked down to 10 men for the rest of the patch against a currently high-flying Celtic. So no, it was a red card, a free kick outside the penalty area.
See, in that situation, why doesn't David Dixon need to look at VAR for that? Because obviously that was just called by VAR. He was outside the box. But he was outside the box. You can see his hand and his shoulder. You released him just literally almost on the line. But does he not have to go and check that screen?
No.
He just takes the word from the VAR HQ?
Andrew Dallas will be sat with the TV in front of him and the monitor in front of him. And if it's quite clear, there's no point in David going across with it.
If the shout is it's definitely outside the box, then you go with it.
Yeah.
You can't be going over and checking everything. Yeah.
Okay.
So no issues with that.
But you did have to go and check one later on, the Alex Gogic foul on 10 minutes to go. Clearly a shirt pull, wasn't it? So it was an obvious penalty, wasn't it?
Yeah. And it's easy to say this, but I did shout penalty when it first happened. But yeah, it was a crowded box, lots of bodies in the way, not a great view for David, not a criticism of his, it's just the way things happen. So yep, VAR rightly got involved with it and got the right shout.
Watching it on TV, obviously because of the way the camera was based in that stand, you could see it quite clearly on TV. I was expecting a penalty straight away. David was a wee bit more narrower, he was more into the ground, but yeah, it was a clear penalty. I don't think Gogic had to grab a hold of at that moment in time, but yeah, got it correct.
A hat trick for Andrew Dallas, and he's got them all right, has he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm quite happy.
Did.
I'm quite happy with that. Yeah, Andrew got all three big decisions correct.
Normally comes in threes, doesn't it?
Yes, but more importantly, the refereeing team.
The team got it
correct. So David and the two assistants. Well done to them.
It certainly provoked debate among the broadcasters on the day. There was a bit of a, let's say, that they were at odds with each other, Andy Walker and Chris Boyd, weren't they?
Aye, there was a wee tantrum in there, wasn't there? We've said enough about certain pundits.
The irony is, and as much as we could see, Andy Walker was absolutely seething. Chris Boyd absolutely beaming and loving it. But this is also the Andy Walker that says an attacker is entitled to go down if they feel contact. So if you're saying you're entitled to go down if you feel contact, then you're pushing the boundaries there. But with the handball that was given against Celtic, everyone expected it. So it was, I think Mr. Walker was maybe needing to go and have a wee seat in a dark room.
On a slightly serious note, though, I mean, Andy was quite uptight in the game or during the analysis of the game. I mean, he was basically saying that clubs should be demanding drama from the SFA, that this VAR is not working. Why are the clubs accepting this? They should be marching on Hampden and asking for answers. And I mean, I thought the timing of that outburst was possibly the wrong time, because that, like we've just discussed, that particular game wasn't the most controversial we've seen this season.
No, that was petulant at best. Of all the games that you could pick, the times where it actually worked, all right, we've come up with an unforeseen circumstance, and you can't help it if it's unforeseen. But I don't see what he was complaining about in that game. Aye, all right, he doesn't like the handball rule. None of us do, but M's the breaks. Of all the games that you could say that VAR's terrible, he picks the one where VAR actually showed that it works.
Yeah, I mean, it ended up very comfortable for Celtic in that match. Obviously, St Mirren down to the 10 men, and they were taken apart second half. We already discussed the O penalty. So let's go to Rangers 3, Kilmarnock 1. A couple of big calls in that game, fellas. The first one being a penalty to Rangers just before half time for a handball. Did you get a good view of that one, Stephen?
Looked round for my mum.
Looking very official there as well.
I was getting a row. I got as good a view as anybody else did, which wasn't a particularly brilliant view. But again, we're going to caveat it with what we said at St Mirren. In the sane world, that's even less, even not in 2 million years, should that ever come anywhere close to being a penalty. It's an utter farce that can even be contemplated. But in this world, that is a penalty. But it's even more farcical that it was on the border between being his armpit and his arm, so it wouldn't have counted as a handball. It's an utter farce. It really is.
I think, going back to what I said regarding the Greg Taylor one, it's just expected now. And the fact the first person to defend it was Derek McInnes. He comes straight out and says, yep, penalty kick, VAR got it right. The person that was closest to the decision was Ryan Kent. Ryan Kent didn't even look for it. He didn't even know anything had occurred. I think it was Cholak was the only...
Cholak appealed for it right away.
Yeah, yep. Cholak appealed for it. The defender's just been extremely unlucky. The ball has bounced up.
Did it hit his arm though?
It did, yeah. There was contact.
Yeah.
But again, how many times did we have to see it on rewind and pause? As soon as Willie was going across that, then you knew that was going to be given. But I can feel heart sorry for the Kilmarnock player, because was it intentional? No. Was he looking to gain an advantage? No. Was he trying to hold off an opponent? No. The ball just came up, as I've said a million times, the ball hit him. Unfortunately, them's the breaks now, and those are penalties.
And it's we've said it's farcical. It's getting ever more farcical. And what really galled, make it a family thing, when we had a certain ex-Scottish referee leader being interviewed a couple of weeks back, talking about how difficult Law 12 is. Law 12 is difficult now because they and people like them have made it difficult. They've made it completely unfathomable. And for IFAB, and I'm on a rant here, for IFAB to have in their paperwork, their raison d'etre, that they uphold and protect the simplicity of football, they're doing anything but. It's an utter farce, and I would hate to be involved.
I'm doffing my cap
in
to
it just
you
now.
Well done, Stephen.
Wow.
Thanks, Mum.
As we've always said, IFAB have the rule. They have got the power to change it. And I'll go on it again. The two words that you come down to for handball is intentional or deliberate or unintentional. That's handball.
End of story.
End of. See, now the way it is, you could probably argue for every handball decision, argue for it or against it, and the governing bodies would back you up, because there's such a myriad of interpretations around it. They could say, oh no, it's not a handball because it's bounced off his leg and it's come up and hit him, or it's a handball because his arms are not sure. Just get rid of all that. Did you deliberately try to handle that ball, or does the ball hit you? Right, okay. Free kick, penalty, or play on. That should be it.
Who's going to have the power and the authority to do that? Who's going to have the guts, let's say, to do that?
Other than us four.
Listen to Steve's speech a couple of minutes ago. I think he should be putting himself up there.
Do a milliband, put that in tablets of stone and take it somewhere.
It's only FIFA who can do that, and Scottish FA are one of the voices on it. So let's hope that we can.
And again, to continue my rant slightly, we moan about them, and something has to be done. We keep forgetting FIFA has a 16th. FIFA, the SFA has a 16th of the votes on IFAB. If we can't bloody do it, then who can?
I know.
And hell mend us. We're on here banging on about it, and managers hate it, players hate it, punters hate it. It's up to every one of them. It's the SFA that have it in their power to change things.
But it only seems to occur up here. I don't remember watching Match of the Day or watching Champions League. I don't see the handball issue being such vociferous elsewhere. It really just seems to be up here that the issue and the interpretation of it is.
Well, the good news is that Rod Petrie's getting on the executive committee of UEFA, so I'm sure everything will be sorted out.
That'll be fine.
One more big call in the Kilmarnock game, and I'm not sure if you agree with this or not, but a lot of Killie fans felt they should have had a penalty in the second half when Alan McGregor knocked over Rory McKenzie. The ball had kind of gone away from McKenzie at the point of contact, but he certainly brought him down. I
think that was a fair enough goalie challenge.
It's contact.
Yeah,
it's contact, but you're going to get that. He's trying to dive to punch the ball away, and his momentum is then went in. I wouldn't like to see a penalty given for that.
No. You'd have a half a dozen penalties every game. I can see the Killie point of view. I'd be really annoyed, but I don't think that's a penalty.
And the Killie goal in that game, they were 3-0 down, of course, but at that point, rather, accusations that Ash Taylor was climbing over the Rangers defenders in the build-up to the goal.
I think same argument as Mr. Johnson. He got up there first. He was having it, and if he gets the leap on the defender, then he'll mend the defender, get there quicker.
There was certainly contact and a wee bit of assistance getting up there, but he's been aggressive, he's been proactive, he's went for it. We see it all the time. Yeah, we see it all the time.
So a good game from Willie then? Yes,
I would say.
I can see your gritted teeth there, Steve.
No, I'm still thinking of the Mr. Dallas comment. No, flippancy aside. No, he did well. Yep.
Old Firm out the way, and they both continue to march on. Midweek action coming up for the two of them. Of course, Glasgow versus Edinburgh on Wednesday night. That should be quite tasty. Look forward to Hibs Rangers and Celtic Hearts. That should be good fun. But so a couple of big decisions up in Dingwall, guys, the Ross County Motherwell match. And I think you think that both of them were fairly accurate. It took a bit of time to get everything organised, but Don Robertson in charge, and basically Des, the Jack Baldwin red card looked like a fairly straightforward one, didn't it?
At the time when we first watched, now Steve and I are a wee bit different in this. The Baldwin red card, Don has initially thought a yellow card. He didn't think it was denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity, quite clearly. The position of Van Veen on the pitch was over to the left hand side more so. Was it Boy Laidlaw, I think, was the other defender
coming in?
It was potentially coming in. He's given the yellow card, and I can see why he's given the yellow card. But the offence is denying an obvious goal scoring opportunity. It's not saying it's a goal scoring. You're going to score a goal. If that defender hasn't made the challenge, is Van Veen going to have a shot at goal? By the letter of the law, yes, he probably could have a shot at goal. It's a bit of a difficult angle, still got a bit of work to do. I can see why the yellow card was given, but playing devil's advocate, I can also understand why Kevin's got him across to say, I think you might want to have another look at this, and I can accept a red card for being given in that. Again, unlucky, but it's an opinion piece there, and I know Steve varies on this one. If Don didn't change his mind, Don said, no, I'm quite happy to stick with my yellow card, I'd be more than happy with that, because at the end of the day, it's the referee's opinion at that moment in time. He's then obviously went across and changed his decision.
Yep, I agree with that completely. My argument is the reverse of Desi's, but it arrives at the same point. In that instance, that is purely and simply an opinion. And I was happy with the yellow card. I think it was really harsh to give a red.
Do you not think Van Veen was going to run through and shoot?
I think the defender would have got there first. Perfectly happy to accept that it's an opinion, and that's the whole beauty of football. You're allowed to have a different opinion. I don't think VAR should be getting involved in that because it is a matter of opinion. There wasn't a clear and obvious error made, so I don't see that VAR should be getting involved in it.
It's not obvious, yes, I would agree with that. It's not obvious, but as soon as Kevin has get involved, is Don going to stick to his own guns? If he did, great, good on him. But yeah, it's one of those, it's like a seesaw, isn't it? You can see it yes, you can see it no.
You know, I've heard, and it's anecdotal, and it's probably out of complete ignorance, that the wording now, or the kind of battle cry is that if VAR gets you over to review it on the monitor, you should be there as one team. So pretty much if you get called to the monitor, then you go with what the monitor tells you. So it's going to take somebody with big balls. I know Willie did it the other week to go against that. I wish Don had stood his ground, but again, that's just an opinion piece, because I don't think he was wrong, and it was purely and simply an opinion. So I don't think VAR should have been involved in that.
How's it one team? I don't get that part. It's one team. We all make sort of collective decisions together. Surely VAR's just there to offer the referee assistance on his initial decision making, and that's all it is. It should just be a case of, there you go, have a look at it.
I agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. But that's really why you don't get anybody other than Willie on that one occasion. Nobody says, thanks, but no thanks. But especially in that one, because that is purely an opinion.
Yeah.
But that's like we've said before in the past, that's like VAR's now refereeing the game and not the referee. If he's feeling pressure, if he's feeling, I need to change this because
can't argue,
collectively part of the greater good here.
Can't argue.
I think we've all seen it, that VAR to a large extent is refereeing the game, because if it's getting a referee to change his decision, then that's going to have an impact on the match. So the referee's given an initial call, and he's only changing it because VAR, who have got the technology in front of them, are telling him to change it. So the game is, as much as they like to say it's not, the game is being controlled by people in the stand.
Happens down south as well, though, isn't it? So I mean, it's not just a Scottish problem.
It's not just here.
English Premier League, I think, about 95-98% actually percent of decisions that they see on the screen get overturned. They go with it. So
there's only one person, obviously, and that would be Don, who knows what went through his head when he saw it on the monitor. If he saw it and then thought, geez, no, I've missed a clear red, then fair enough. But if he's looked at that and gone, do you know what, I'm still happy with a yellow, then he should have stuck to his guns. But only Don knows that. And
I'm assuming that the referee is seeing exactly the same pictures that the viewers are seeing. Is that correct?
As far as
we're aware,
yeah. As far as I'm aware,
they're not seeing anything different.
There's no miraculous view. They don't have a special drone or anything. So they get the same, very often rotten view as we get.
Yeah.
And Don had another VAR decision to deal with as well in the game for the penalty incident. He gave a penalty initially, Des, and then Kevin Clancy intervened and said, actually, come and have a look at this, Don. You got that one wrong.
And Kevin was quite correct to get Don across from that one. When you seen it initially, you see Iacovitti going to ground, being pulled by the Motherwell defender. But when you look back, it's actually Iacovitti who instigates the initial foul and throws the Motherwell defender off balance. So the Motherwell defender, while having a hold of the Ross County player, it's in reaction because he's been pushed, he's stumbling, he's pulling down. So yeah, absolutely correct to go and overturn it. I know Malky Mackay won't be terribly happy having two major decisions going against his team, but certainly in that instance, that one was correct.
Yeah, he was right. Yeah, no argument with that one. And again, in Don's defence, when you see the Stramash in the penalty area, I would defy any field side ref to have given a different decision from Don. What he gave was what he saw. It was impossible for him to have seen the initial one.
No.
So no arguments.
Copyright Arthur Montford on Stramash. A similar one. I
put a silent E in it.
A similar one in the Livingston game as well, Des, wasn't there? There were a sort of situation there where there was a challenge with Fitzwater and the referee wasn't convinced at the time.
I think it was that one was more obvious because the player was running into open play and going towards the penalty area. Fitzwater, I don't think he's meant to trip him up. He's sort of got tangled, but the fact that the attacker is running at speed straight through and goal, only the goalkeeper to beat. There's only one instance that's going to happen there. It has to be a red card. There was no dubiety over it. So that was Chris Graham. So yeah, we got that one. You got that one absolutely correct.
And just one more aspect from me today. IFAB have come out and said that they're not going to to look at sort of temporary substitutes for concussion, which is I know it's a bit of a bugbear of yours, Steve.
It is, yeah.
And I find that astonishing. You know, you think all the problems that have been uncovered over the last few years in terms of players that have had problems with head injuries when they've been younger. You would think there would be a more attention to detail and care.
I couldn't disagree with a single word, and I've ranted on about it often enough. The number of neurological conditions that sports people have, especially contact sports people, excuse me, footballers included, and you know, there's no way of proving it for sure. But the number of motor neuron cases we've had, there's Fernando Ricks and you get Jimmy Johnson. Yeah. The number of people who end up with, in the old days it would be pre-senile dementia that you would call it. It's absolutely appalling, and I think it's a complete dereliction of duty on IFAB. When people like rugby, the minute somebody, you know, you fall to the ground heavily and you're hooked off in rugby for a head injury assessment, it's a piece of nonsense, and it, God forbid, it's going to take somebody to pull them up and say, you know, that there's X amount of people who suffer chronic neurological conditions in football. What did you do? Absolutely nothing. Oh well, here we go. Let's get our lawyers involved. It's an utter nonsense, and it is a serious dereliction, and it's dangerous.
I find it hard to accept that when they've already got in place a concussion ban. A player's not allowed to participate in training, or not allowed to participate in a match if they have some concussion. So surely this is should come in even before it. If you have got somebody there, get a player on, let them be a concussion substitute or an emergency substitute. Allow you to assess the person properly in a correct environment, away from the pitch, and to see how they're reacting. Yeah, I find it really strange that that hasn't been looked at as a possible move, particularly if it's been flagged up.
Well, sadly, it has been looked, and they've decided to ignore it. And you know, you can imagine, Liverpool if Salah was on the concussion protocol. Imagine up here if Kyogo's on the concussion protocol. That's them automatically out. You know, doesn't matter what, they're completely out for, say, 3 weeks. And if their first assessment isn't going the way that it should do in that first week, you get put back again. So who's to know that concussion, which now we wouldn't bother about, but if you did have the concussion subs, that could lead to a 6-week absence. Now, again, I'm speaking out of ignorance. I haven't spoken to anybody in officialdom or any clubs about that. But it must come into people thinking that their top scorer is out for 6 weeks just because he's taken a head knock.
That can only be the explanation. There's pressure from clubs themselves.
I'd like to think not, but I can't see any other reason why they have arrived at that conclusion, because it's health and safety of a human being that we're dealing with here. So the only people that can put pressure on IFAB are the clubs and the home nations. So I would dread to think that somebody down the line has a fatality or is proven to have some neurological disorder because they have been neglected.
On a slightly cheerier or different note, then, you mentioned Mo Salah, and you know, I just loved his celebration when he broke Robbie Fowler's record for Liverpool in that 7-0 annihilation of Manchester United. He takes his shirt off and he's got the ripped body, he's throwing it about and he chucks it. He's going to get booked for it, of course, because that's the silly rule we have. But I know we've mentioned this before, but why on earth would you get booked for that?
Just cause.
Because we don't make the rules. Football's a celebration. That's and listen, see if any of us had a body like Mo Salah, I'd be taking my top off and I'd be throwing it in the crowd.
We'd be the first refs to get booked for whipping your shirt off.
Oh my God, what a perilous thought that is.
Yeah, that's going to put you off your tea. Be careful when you listen to this.
On that happy note, we'll end this episode of Get Involved Referee. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.